Just in time for our conversation this morning. Stanley Ngugi, a financial advisor, is here. A personal financial advisor is here. Stan, it's so good to have you. Happy Easter.
Thank you.
And you revealed yourself during this period.
I love Kenyans, so I'm going to spare this couple of minutes to
Right.
help.
Thank you. And speaking of the next couple of minutes, for about the next 30 minutes, so we're talking about budgeting for the holiday. And Stan, let's begin with the younger generation, because they're the ones who travel the most. They're the ones who now have built the culture of traveling. Naivasha, Nakuru, Nanyuki, those sort of plans. What are some of the mistakes that we tend to do as young people when it comes to budgeting for holidays?
I think some of the mistakes that you see with young people is basically that there was no plan from the beginning. It's like it's very spontaneous. It's happening last minute, and there's some excitement to that spontaneity, but it comes at a financial cost because you hadn't planned for it. You may tend to go over budget if there was a budget from the beginning. And so one of the things that I would encourage is like, yes, do the Nax Vegas, do the Naivasha trips, but maybe plan, especially if you're going to travel as a group, make sure it's very clear how much are we going to spend, how much is each person going to contribute.
Speaking of contribution, there's always that one person. There's always that one person on during traveling who will have more expenses on their side. Even if you open a WhatsApp group, you know, there's always going to be that one person who's going to feel the pinch a little bit more, which I don't think is right within a circle of friends.
It's not.
So how do we tackle that?
Well, I think it's important for you, especially if you're going to be traveling with friends, it's important for you to set like very clear expectations of the costs. Okay, so I would recommend that people sit down as a group or maybe on WhatsApp. They just sit down and say, this is how much we anticipate to spend on fuel, food. You know, we're going to use this person's car. How do we compensate the person whose car we are using, you know?
They never do that.
No, they don't. How do we compensate? Like, we have used their tires, you know? So how do we compensate? Which hotel are we going to stay at? If it's food, how are we going to pay? Are we sharing? And then have a very clear budget, and then everyone contributes, maybe even giving... like maybe even appointing a treasurer, someone to manage the money, because you don't want to have a holiday where someone is left with a very bitter taste in their mouth.
That's right.
Because I contributed an extra 1,000 bob than anyone else, you know?
And normally that tends to be the thing that happens.
It does happen quite a lot.
Don't you think that it's also important to include miscellaneous activities, especially like you say that young people are very spontaneous?
Well, first of all, let me just say there's nothing called miscellaneous. I've never bought anything.
There's nothing like miscellaneous?
What's miscellaneous? There's no shop that sells miscellaneous. Miscellaneous is something that you hadn't planned for. It's like impulse. Okay. So what I would recommend is that be very clear. For example, something that would be considered miscellaneous would be stopping and buying snacks. You can actually have thought beforehand, which snacks are we going to buy and how much is that going to cost. That way, you have a lot more control. Budgeting is about controlling your money. For me, I actually don't like the word budgeting. I like to use the word wisdom spending, which kind of gives it a nice ring to it.
Wisdom spending.
Yes,
I like it as well.
It's wisdom spending.
Wisdom spending.
It's planned, you know. Yeah, we're going to stop here and buy crisps and sodas, and because miscellaneous gives you the excuse to use money you hadn't planned to use. Yeah.
Is it wise then, Stan, to say, especially now that we are seeing a generation where, you know, our parents weren't people of going for trips. They didn't believe in vacations. Vacation was probably going to shags, and that's during Christmas. So with our younger generation, things are a bit different. So is it wise for a young person then to have their different bank account for like vacations, the thrift spending, like you're saying, etc.? Yeah,
it's actually interesting that you mentioned that the younger generation, people, the millennials as they are called, research has shown that they are preferring to spend money on travel and life experiences over things like cars and building homes, which is okay. Every generation has their own thing. It is therefore absolutely important for you to plan for that. And yes, I do agree. Have a separate have a separate account. For example, there's a friend of mine who keeps some money on a different M-Pesa line for the December holiday. So she knows that it will cost something like 25K for the December holiday.
So she has an M-Pesa line strictly for her travels?
Yeah, for just travels. And so she just contributes. On a monthly basis, she sends some money there. Of course, I'm trying to tell her to put it on the side that has a bit of interest.
Yes, because M-Pesa doesn't have interest.
It doesn't have interest, but I think the others, it's the Mshwari side. I think that does have interest. It's not much. It's only at the level of inflation, but that makes sure that her money is protected. I think it's okay to, I consider myself young, but I'm kind of moving out of that group.
It's okay.
Forever young. And I am more, and I hope my wife isn't watching, but I am more interested in like the travel and the life experiences.
Creating
as well.
memories and so forth.
Yeah, that's what I want. And so whenever I'm thinking about my financial future, I'm thinking, okay, how do I, London, Paris, how do I get to all these places? And you have to have like a separate plan for that. Yeah.
All right. The other thing that I think it's important we need to touch is that as Kenyans, we have this bad habit of last minute.
Yeah.
We even read a story on how Naivasha is quite packed, one of the resort managers said, Kenyans are last-minute people. Talk to me about how important it is and how it can save one lots of money if you book ahead in advance for hotels, for your plane ticket.
Absolutely. And, to some extent, we kind of pride ourselves in being last-minute, even with taxes and everything else. But last minute, this is my rule. Last minute is always more expensive. You would get the same thing, but you're paying more money for it. Whether it's hotels, planes and all that, it's always more expensive. This is the thing to do. This is the thing I advise, is that try and book as early as possible. As early as possible. Like for me, if I'm flying, I always try and do it 6 months in advance. You find that you get like.
But who has the calendar 6 months in advance? So unless you're like Bill Gates or I don't know who.
The interesting thing is that's how you become Bill Gates, by planning ahead, by knowing in 6 months. I will be here, And it doesn't, in December, we know that I will be in Shags in December. I will go. Or in December, I'll go to Mombasa. That's about, what, 8-9 months away. You can start planning for that and start.
There's also Madaraka, which is coming up. It's going to be another long holiday like this Easter one.
Yeah. You start, okay, so like now we are firmly in the swing of Easter. This is the time now, okay, maybe on Tuesday, we start thinking about, okay, so what's Madaraka going to look like?
Open that WhatsApp group now.
Yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing is those ones that are well planned, actually tend to be better because the money is there. You can do extra things because it's not spontaneous and last minute. It was planned. We know what we're going to do and how much we're going to spend. That's why for me, I look at a budget again as a wisdom spending. It's about how you will enjoy your life to the max, not how you will squeeze yourself.
Because the other thing with budgeting is that I think most people tend to forget that there's a key reason why you're budgeting. Why are you budgeting? What's your end result?
Exactly. And such a fantastic point for you to raise. I think it's always important to have that at the back of our mind. Why am I budgeting and why am I saving? If it's for the holidays, the reason that we budget for holidays is not so that we constrain ourselves. It's so that we take maximum advantage and enjoyment out of the holiday. It's about saying, Madaraka Day is coming up. I want to do this amazing thing. What do I need to do? How do I need to plan to make that happen?
But also as young people, if we are not traveling, we also want to be within Nairobi, have Nyama Choma at Stan's Place. That is still budgeting for holiday. I might not necessarily have left Nairobi, but because I am hosting, that's still planning. And as a guest, I might find myself spending a bit more. So talk to me about budgeting or wisdom, even though I'm not living Nairobi.
You're not traveling? Well, that's actually my plan for the afternoon. I'm going to be hosting a few friends for lunch. I am doing that, yes, for the budgeting aspect, but also because, like, personally, I'm kind of like an introvert. And so I like nice, quiet lunches and dinners.
Controlled
and,
numbers.
Exactly. So for me, it also works for me. And I'm able to host them in the way I would like. I'll buy them the drinks I like at the supermarket at no expense. I'll buy food at the place where I'll get it the best price. I'll cook for them, and that kind of saves me. So I try to make it kind of like an event where we are going to, like, if it is grilling, we come and grill together instead of buying food. And it's fun, but it also saves a lot of money.
Would you say that in such a scenario that even though you have your close circle of about, let's say, 5 to 10 friends who you're hosting, it's also important to let them know, okay, so who's going to bring the pork? Who's going to bring the sodas? So everyone sort of tends to contribute at the end of the day, so we don't all strain stand, because it's the same thing as going to Nakuru or Mombasa. It's just that this time round, we're at Stan's Place.
Exactly. And so we have to contribute. And I want to say something touchy, if you'll allow.
Please.
But there's also an element of, I want to show my friends not Miss Stanley, but other people want to show their friends that they can afford.
I got this.
Know, I got this.
Yes.
I mean, that's such an expensive attitude. It's very likely that your friends are willing to contribute. So, I mean, have a discussion about it and say, like, for example, I know who is actually going to bring the meat at today's lunch.
Without even asking.
Yeah, it's because we've already, like, there's an agreement that, you know, we are doing this together. We are celebrating together.
Plus, it's hospitable.
Exactly.
If I'm coming to Stan's place, I class by take unga, soda.
It's a Kenyan thing, right?
It's an African culture.
You should, and that culture existed for a reason, so that we don't strain whoever it is we are going to visit unnecessarily. Yeah.
Let's talk about that friend who doesn't contribute. How do you begin to have a conversation with someone like that?
Yeah.
As a personal finance advisor, oh my goodness, how do you talk to that friend?
Well, friendship is about openness. And I think that it's really important for you to have those like difficult conversations. There's no way you're going to go into a journey of wealth creation and financial freedom if you don't practice openness. To tell your friend like, yo, you know, if you are coming to my house, everyone is contributing, please make sure you contribute. In the same way, when I come to your house, I'll do the same. And people over time will learn. It's the same thing when about sending money home, you know, when you work in Nairobi, you're always sending money home.
Yeah.
It's important to be honest and open with them when you can't afford to send money. Is it a difficult conversation? Absolutely. But it's a must.
The other difficult conversation is that you tend to, and I say we, especially younger people, we tend to plan for a trip, for example, to Mombasa, but at this specific resort, which is crazy when it comes to pricing, and we're not considering that one person who might not be able to pay. So you
know, it's those open conversations, you know, and even if, say, for example, if it is I who was unable to pay, I should be open enough to say,
guys,
you know, guys, I can't hack that. What are other options that we can look at?
A more affordable resort.
Exactly. I love that word, affordable. People think of it as cheap, but think of it as affordable or economical or wisdom spending, right? There are so many places that offer great rates, but they're not like brands, you know, they're not a big name, but you'll have the same experience. So the question is, are you buying the name or are you buying the experience? So that really helps to kind of set the tone for how your spending is. Make sure you're not just paying for names. You're actually paying for the experience and the quality. And that applies to our holidays. That applies to our shopping. You know, sometimes we shop at a certain place because of the name. And, you know, you have to pay an extra coin for that name.
Right.
So let's be in the habit of buying not names, but
quality service.
The quality services, yeah.
Let's touch on medical expenses, especially when budgeting for the holidays. I feel like that's one thing that we tend to forget, be it within a family setting or even personal when you're traveling with friends.
Yeah.
Have a first aid kit in the car.
Yes.
What else can you advise us on that?
I think, you know, it's something that's rarely, actually in all my years doing interviews about personal finance, no one has ever asked me about medical expenses during the holidays. But then that's when you see a lot of injuries, a lot of car accidents and that kind of thing. Yes, have the first aid kit, but from a financial perspective, always make sure that your medical insurance is catered for and provided. There's even travel insurance. It helps because, you know, insurance is a way of protecting yourself in case anything happens. So set aside some budget. As a matter of fact, I believe medical insurance should be in your monthly budget. Set it aside such that if anything happens, you're sorted for. Right. Imagine when you travel with your kids and you come back home at night and they get sick the following day. You know, what's your plan for that? Yeah.
I like the fact that you say that you travel and then you come back home the following day. You don't want another January to happen where you find yourself, you have spent, and then you remember, oh, wait, there's rent when I come back that I need to pay.
Yeah. So this is, I guess maybe this is where we talk to the young people and say, make sure that before you go and spend on your holiday this Easter, especially because it's end month, right? People are being paid right about now. Make sure you've sorted your rent, your electricity, your water,
before you leave the house.
Before you leave the house. Otherwise, you're going to come back on Tuesday and you're like, okay, the landlord, you know, the landlords are very gracious about keeping track of the month and when it ends. They won't forgive you because it's Easter. As a matter of fact, they are also kind of recovering and will be more aggressive with their rent requests, if I can call them that.
Let's shift gears from young people to budgeting for a family now.
Yeah.
Families, how is that different from now budgeting for an individual?
Yeah, I think that it's the scope of it. It's that when you're budgeting for a family, you now have to consider a lot more things and a lot more people. So now we are not just talking about a trip to Naivasha alone. You're actually talking about you, maybe wife, kids, and so on. So the budget tends to be a bit bigger. And also, for anyone who has children, you know, children can be quite expensive. Research has shown that when you get a baby, your cost of living increases by about 30%. That's something for all parents to know, per child. So children are expensive.
Per child?
Per child, about 30%.
Per child.
Children are expensive.
I think we just need to rethink and reevaluate the whole children thing again. Okay.
I'm not going to touch on that today. I'll come back for that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a lot more money. And then children also increase that because, you know, they'll want to buy a balloon, which for some reason costs 50 bob instead of 10 bob.
And then the friendly family packages that, you know, are specifically catered for families, those are the ones that even we need to be wise enough to target.
Yes.
And again, ahead of time. So like right now, even as a family, we should be knowing what are we doing for Madaraka? Because it's the next long holiday.
Yeah. And absolutely, because family packages family tour packages kind of combine and give you the economies of scale, right? But what I will say is make sure you shop around even for those ones. Because remember, all of these people who are offering family packages are businesses. And so they're going to want to make a profit. So make sure you don't just go to that one very well-known area or tour company. Make sure you kind of explore what else is out there. Someone may be offering 25K for a family package to Mombasa, and then their competitor is offering 20K for the same package. So make sure like you shop around before you make a decision.
You've done your research.
Make sure you do your research, and then as early as possible. So if we haven't started thinking about what we'll do for Madaraka or maybe even Christmas, this is the perfect time. And I know several tour providers who actually allow you to book December holidays
as early as now.
As early as now, and at off-peak rates. And they even allow you to pay like on a monthly basis. So you can just contribute pole. By the time December is coming, you're sorted. And that saves in January. Because what happens within January is you spent money that was supposed to be for Jan during the holiday.
Right.
So you hadn't set anything specifically aside for that. So what I'm encouraging is like, just think ahead, shop around for whatever packages are available, and just going back to what we spoke about earlier, make sure you're not paying for names, brand names. Make sure you're paying for experiences.
Stan, there's also the habit of families traveling together, just as individuals or groups of individuals as friends travel together. You find families doing so. So Njuguna's family with the Modi's family all decide to go to Nakuru
together.
So talk to me about that. How do you budget for two different families? Should one family just independently budget for themselves? Or are there a few things that if you're going to travel together as two different group of families that you need to say, hey, we need to be on the same page when it comes to this?
I guess it depends on how close you are. But because you may be traveling with people, but you're not that close to mix finances. But if you are open.
I mean, by the time you're traveling together, you should be able to mix finances, Stan.
I guess so. It's too late to be uncomfortable with each other, right?
Too late.
Okay, fine. In that instance, I would say maybe look for a group package. You know, the thing about packages is the more people you are, the better rate you get. So if you're 5 in a family and there are also 5 on their side, you get a much better rate as 10 people. And I would even encourage people to negotiate with these providers, right? Say, okay, listen, we are buying 2 family packages. Can you combine the 2 family packages into one big package for all 10 of us?
But do resorts, do they sort of allow you to bargain? Because I mean, it's
absolutely.
like me walking into a specific, what should I call, mall and saying I'm going to bargain.
You should
Resorts allow you to bargain?
Everyone has that flexibility.
Are they not called fixed prices, Stan? It's like me going to Nakumatt and telling them, this bread, manzi, I cannot buy it for 52.
Did you know, let me shock you, kidogo, did you know that you can even negotiate with your bank for the rate that they are going to give you in interest?
That one I've heard before.
Yes, you should be in the habit of negotiating whenever possible.
Now Kenyans will start going into supermarkets and bargaining.
I think they should try and bargain and see what you can get.
Because I feel like if you cannot bargain in a supermarket, how are you going to bargain in a resort?
You should, okay, there are two ways to think about it. Number one, if you're buying it through a tours and travels company, definitely bargain. But even a resort, call them and tell them, hey, hi, I'm coming with this number of people. What's your rate? Okay, what's the best rate I can get? And then you just normally bargain. You'll realize that the people are flexible. Nothing is, especially in tours and travels, nothing is really fixed.
I think it's also how you say it. What's the best rate I can get? Instead of bei ya mwisho ni.
But actually it works, and you'll actually get a lower rate. For example, if a hotel is, say for example, you're booking for a December holiday now, you call a hotel and they have 0 bookings in December.
They will do anything.
They'll give you a very, very good rate. They have flexibility. So
right.
I've done it in the past, and it works.
All right.
It works.
Before we close off, what are some of the what advice would you love to leave Kenyans with when it comes to holiday budgeting that you feel like we haven't touched yet?
I don't know whether this qualifies fully as holiday budgeting, but I think it's important. Let's reconsider what we consider as celebration. So a lot of times we consider celebration as eating, drinking, but what if we considered celebration as buying an investment as a celebration? Like this Easter holiday, I'm gonna buy some shares for myself. This Easter holiday, instead of going and having this fantastic night out, I'm going to spend time with my wife, and we'll go and look at shambas that we are considering to buy.
I like that.
Those kind
for your birthday, buy yourself a piece of land.
Exactly. And it teaches your children something about money. That celebration isn't about eating money. We can celebrate by making money. So take them around so that they can see you looking at the shambas, and they'll ask you, Daddy, Mommy, what do you look at when you're trying to buy a shamba? And imagine that's how kids of rich people actually now get into the habit of building wealth themselves, because they saw the way their parents behaved around money.
Honestly, I love that. I love that. We need to start rethinking as a nation what it means celebrating.
Yes.
That for my birthday, I can buy myself shares.
Yes.
For Christmas, let's go buy that piece of land.
Yes.
Stanley, thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Stanley Ngugi, a personal financial advisor, is giving us tips, do's and don'ts of how to budget for your holiday. We're taking a quick break, but of course, when we come back, I have Mwikali, who is an amazing lady, and she has great decoration stuff. How are you planning to decorate your house if you're like Stanley, who plans to host this afternoon? A lot more of that, so stay with us.